Welcome to another episode of the official Preston North End podcast. This is PNE Pod. My name's Niall McCorn.
And I'm Neil Millar. We'll be chatting to some PNE legends, some former teammates of mine, some famous PNE fans as well on the show.
And also some current first team PNE players, and that's exactly who we've got today. We've got Liam Millar, someone who comes from Canada and has had a really interesting background in the game.
Played in a World Cup, may play in another World Cup, and is certainly enjoying his spell at Preston North End.
Okay, well, let's get stuck into the story of how Liam Millar became a professional footballer on PNE Pod. Great to have a first team player from PNE on the podcast today. Liam Millar's with us. How are you doing, Liam?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, and excited to speak to you because there's not many Canadian football players in the English game. I suppose when you grow up in Canada, you're a bit strange for liking soccer, whereas in England, if you don't like soccer, you're the weird one.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird story. My dad said when I was a kid, he tried to put me in ice hockey all the time. Like, he tried to get me to skate and to do all that, but I just wasn't interested in it. Like, I just really hated it. Like, every time I got on the ice, I would cry and complain, and I would hate it. But my dad said once he put me on the football pitch, it was just like a different story. I just ran around like headless chicken, trying to get the ball off everybody, just like kicking and shooting and just doing what every kid does, I guess. And I guess at that moment, my dad just thought that that's what I wanted to do. And then obviously it went from there, didn't it? So
give us an idea in Canada, because in England, everyone wants to play football. No one wants to ice skate. Is it different in Canada? Is it a case of everyone wanting to do the ice hockey rather than football?
yeah, I would say like the majority of the kids want to play ice hockey, but I feel like now it's a lot different. When I was a kid, it was probably like honestly the fifth or sixth sport in the country. Like, I have to say, like, it wasn't very popular at all. Like, I couldn't name one player from our national team. I couldn't, nothing. Like, no.
Did you call it football or soccer?
Soccer, yeah.
You call it
Yeah, soccer. But no, but like I couldn't name one person from the team, and it was like really not important. So my dad obviously played a little bit when he was younger, and my grandfather played a little bit as well. So it was kind of like a little bit in the family, but it wasn't like a serious sport. So it was actually quite hard to like break through and to like to do stuff. They just started like the Toronto FC Academy when I want to say like 10, 11, 12. They like just started the age groups of doing it. They just like formed it. And that's like when it started to get a little bit more serious. But yeah, but to be honest, now it's really good now, like because of our national team and how we've done. We went to the World Cup and we, did all these things. It's really made like a big movement for like a lot of like Canadian young kids, and like to look up to like people like Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and stuff like that. So it's really
and
like
Liam Millar.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. But yeah, no, like it's really comes leaps and bounds. I would say it's second or third sport now.
I'm trying to get my head around this. So as a young kid, we follow our team. We know the players. There must have been a team or a player that you watched, soccer as you called it. We call it football. As a young kid, maybe one that sticks out. Yeah. Maybe a game or a team.
Yeah.
Who was it when you were younger?
No, like Neil, like, you won't like it, but I played for Liverpool, but I was a huge Man United fan growing up.
We're going to edit
that. So it was simply for one reason. It was just because in Canada at the time, there was only one team on TV, which was Man United, because they were the best team. And they didn't have much TV rights for games as a kid, and literally Man United was on every week. The game I remember the most was Man City, Man United, when Rooney scored the bicycle kick. That's the game I remember the most as a kid. I remember me and my dad watching it on the TV and standing up in complete and utter shock, and we couldn't believe what we just saw when he scored that. So yeah, it was just really that's the only reason. They didn't really have big soccer things back in the day, but now obviously it's completely different. They have DAZN now that does like every single game. Now TSN, which is another one that does like quite a few games and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Do you think that's why we're seeing a rise of popularity in the game in Canada, because there's just more exposure to it?
Yeah, but to be honest, like I think it comes from like, to be honest, like what we did in the national team. Like, if I'm being a little bit selfish here, maybe, but we really created like a thing there. Like before our generation kind of came to the national team, we were still kind of like a bang average national team, and that's nothing to do with the other guys before. There are probably still some very good players in there, but we really pushed the generation with our coach, John Herdman. We really pushed everything to make the country feel more soccer related, and we pushed and we pushed, and we were beating teams in the first qualifiers 11-0 and 8-0, and like making things more exciting for people to want to watch us and all this stuff. And then we had games where we played the US and Toronto or in Canada, we haven't beat the US in so long, and we go out there and we beat the US 2-1. They come back again, beat them 2-0. And then it's like, so we're playing against Mexico. We're beating Mexico at home. We're drawing to Mexico in Azteca, where we haven't got a result in Azteca in like 30 years or something. And yeah, so we're like continually like making it like more entertaining and everything for all of us, for all the fans in Canada. And I think that kind of helped people want to watch soccer more. And then obviously they got more TV rights and all that kind of stuff from that, or maybe not from that, but you know what I mean, like because people wanted to watch it, more supply, more demand, you know.
But playing football as a young boy, what sort of leagues was it? I mean, grassroots in England, there's leagues everywhere. There's about 4 or 5 teams per club. I mean, how big was sort of playing football and the leagues as a young kid?
Yeah, like when you're a kid, like it's literally just grassroots. Like we call it Timbits because it's like a coffee.
You call it what?
Timbits. It's like Timbits. Yeah, so it's like a coffee place called Tim Hortons. They have it here in the UK.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
And they have like these little donuts called Timbits, and they name like the kids House League. It's called House League, but they name it after.
So it's not sponsored or anything. It's
no,
just
it is,
a
of course. Yeah.
Oh, it is sponsored.
Yeah, it is sponsored. Yeah.
It just
but they call it Timbits, and it's like Timbit Soccer. Like my daughter plays in there right now, which is kind of funny. But yeah, then you go Timbits, and then you go to Rep, which is like the better kids, but there's Rep A, B, and C. And then now I believe they have something called OYSL, which is like the best kids in the Rep age groups. And then after OYSL, you can play for like an academy team like Toronto or something. But when I was a kid, it was just Timbits, Rep, and then they just started OYSL as I moved on to England.
Did you want to be a footballer, or was it a case of thinking you enjoy playing football, but you know you've got to maybe get a different job?
Yeah, no, like when I was a kid, it was like I really just enjoyed it, and I didn't really think about it until I went to Toronto. I went to Toronto as a young kid, and I had a tryout there, and I felt like I was doing quite well. But when I was a kid, it took me a while to like hit puberty and like to mature. So I was quite small and like quite fragile, really. I was getting pushed off the ball a lot. And in Canada at the time, it was really like based off like physical appearance. Like that's what they kind of wanted, like presences and stuff. And they released me at 12 or 11 or something. They cut me from TFC. And, you know, I remember the drive home crying with my dad, like, oh, like all I want to do is play soccer and blah, 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 blah. And my dad was like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Like everything happens for a reason, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously I got a chance to come over here, and I just was like, you know what, like I'm going to make that decision, and I'm going to try my best and go for it. And you know what, worst case, if I don't go for it, I can always move back. So it's just, I might as well take that chance. And if nothing happens from it, just move back to Canada.
How did you get that chance?
So my dad used to coach like the 1997s like boys team at like the club I used to play for, which was North Mississauga, and we used to play there. He used to coach there, sorry, and he was like one of the better teams in Canada, or in Ontario at least. And he went across to the Keel Cup in Stoke, like a tournament in Stoke. He went across.
The Keel Cup. This is like the most famous young tournament every team in England's played at.
Yeah,
all the top teams are there. It's
yeah, so he played there with his team. His team was really good, and they actually, I think, finished second, I think, in the tournament or whatever. But anyways, my dad was registering his team for the tournament, and my dad walked in, and this team from New York was like saying to like the registration desk, like, oh, like, well, we don't have any players, like our players all became sick or something, blah, 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 blah. And I was there with him, and he was like, well, my son is here, like how old is your team? And they go 99. And my dad was like, oh, my son's a 99, like he just got released from Toronto FC, like he's a decent player, like if you need someone, like he's there, you know, you can play. And they were like, yeah, sure, like we need the players. So they just like brought me on to a random team from New York. And I was like, okay, like whatever. So, and then I get into the team, and I scored like 13 goals in 4 games or something stupid. I don't remember what it was, but it was like unreal. And I was like on fire, and I was playing so well. I had like the whole like Stoke team on the side, like go number 8 and all that. And like I was like I felt like the king of the world, you know. And then I had some opportunities for a trial from Stoke, West Brom, and Fulham. And obviously I didn't know nothing about like the football pyramid or like anything, because obviously from Canada, again, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know like which team was the best, like academy developers. I had no idea. So I just looked at the Premier League table, and at the time Fulham was the highest. So I was like, let's just go to Fulham, I guess. So I went to Fulham, and to be fair to them, they have a very good development system there, and it worked out very well. So
I guess it's helpful when you've got a dad like you do who's got experience in the game. I think your dad was a youth team player at Charlton.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Which is a club you ended up playing for on loan, incidentally. How helpful or influential has he been in your career? Because you spoke about being cut from the team and then, you know, crying with him in the car and then him telling you everything's going to be okay. And then he signed you up to this team from New York and you shine there. And then he helps you when you move to England as a young boy, when you go and sign for Fulham. So how much of a help has he been to you over the years?
Yeah, you know, without my dad, I don't think I could be, you know, where I am today. You know, he sacrificed his whole life for me, really. You know, it's hard to put into words sometimes when your parents can do stuff like that for you. So yeah, you know, he moved his whole life for me over to England. You know, he did have a job that was very easy, not easy to get everywhere, but he's an electrician, so he, you know, everywhere needs electricians. So he could get a job here, but you know, he left my mom and my brothers and my sisters and everything to make sure that I had everything possible to succeed here. So, you know, sometimes I complain about him for being a little bit too passionate, but I understand why he's so passionate about it. And
because you didn't want to go originally, right?
No, I didn't know. Like to be honest with you, like, you know, the 11 or 12, 13-year-old boy in me was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my mom, my brother, my sister. Like, you know, I had a really good friend, Mike, at the time. You know, my wife was also my really good friend at the time. And like, I didn't want to leave them, like, you know, because when you're 13, your most important thing is your friends and there's nothing really more important. Right. So I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And my dad was like, Liam, like, you're going, like, you know, and, you know, he made that decision for me because I wasn't at the age where I could make that decision. And like I said, it was the best decision he ever made, best decision I ever made getting on that plane. And you know, it changed my whole life drastically. And I think it also changed his life as well because he loves it over here now. You know, he could have moved back at any time and he still lives he lives in Wigan now, but he still lives in the area and he just lives his life and does films and all that.
Neil Millar scored. Preston take the lead. And that's exactly what it means to Neil Millar to score in the West Lancashire derby.